Hey guys, Barry here, and welcome back to the IGS podcast show. And here we have, I guess, co-founder of Fallen Tree Games. He is also the art director as well for, well, we're talking about American Fugitive here today. Lewis Bodle, how are you, sir?
Very well, Barry. Thanks for having me on board.
It's great to have you here, and as you know, I've had, I guess, as you're watching, you would have seen hopefully some footage of the game in action, the first 45, 50 minutes of the game or so. And I guess the game is out today on Switch as you're watching. You can buy it on PS4 and PC, and it should be out, is it tomorrow, if I'm correct, on Xbox One?
So I think the dates are actually, I think it's Tuesday for Switch.
Is it
And
Tuesday for Switch
then,
as well?
yeah, so I think it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. So I think I'd have to do, I'll check the dates. I'll see if
Yeah.
I can pull it
Yeah,
up there.
so,
But
I guess as we're talking, because this will be going live next week, you know.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, the game, like I said to you, I guess beforehand, it's just GTA Chinatown vibes for me, and it's pretty amazing. Like I wanted something like this for a long time. The fact that we can play something like this, I guess, in full HD on a console is great. Yeah, so tell us a bit about yourself, and I guess your kind of role in the company as well.
well, so we founded the company in about 2012, I believe it was officially. So it was set up by myself and a friend of mine, a guy called Joe Molding. So he is the game director and I am the art director. And we both met when working at Free Radical Design here in Nottingham, uh, famous for the Time Splitters series of games, as you know. Uh, and My first game at Free Radical was Haze, somewhat anti-climactical first-person shooter. Wasn't hugely well received, but it was a good, an interesting project for me, a good learning experience. Joe and I worked together on the Battlefront 3 Star Wars game that never was, a game that got canned
Yeah.
sadly. And we worked together for a few years, and then Free Radical went out of business, and Joe stayed on to join Crytek. They took over Free Radical, and I went to Derby and joined a company called Eurocom and works on some film times there. But we still live together here in Nottingham, Joe and I, and we started experimenting with doing mobile phone apps on the side for fun. And we made a small, simple 2D puzzle game, which we released onto the App Store called Quell, Quell.
Hmm.
And it was quite a simple aesthetic. It was based on an old idea that Joe had, kind of almost like a Pac-Man 2D kind of side scroll, side swipe, droplet moving game, and we kind of reskinned it with this old-fashioned kind of very relaxed, serene aesthetic with some lovely kind of gentle music. Which just is the antithesis to action, stress, tense games. We just wanted a lovely, soothing, relaxing game that you could play on the bus or after a long day of work. We
Yeah.
released this game onto the App Store just as an experiment, just to see what this process like. Because this would have been like 2009, I suppose, 2009. So it was relatively early in the App Store cycle, certainly for us. And
Yeah.
it was just a change. It was a break for us to get away from the working on those big projects and working on things like Battlefront and Haze. Fantastic projects to work on, but you're a tiny part of a big team. And so we wanted to just unwind by having control of the whole project ourselves, and deciding on the art and the music and everything. And the App Store was a great thing. So we released these games, released the first Quell game, and was well reviewed and well received, but still quite a small had a minor success, I guess it would say. But we enjoyed the process. So some months later, after that was released, we started work on a sequel called Quell Reflect. And I think that was maybe 6 months in development or so. and then we released that onto the App Store. And then as an experiment, we made, these were both paid games. As an experiment, we then made the first Quell game free. And at the time, people weren't really doing that. Everything was, paid 69p or 99p for an iPhone game. And in doing that, made the first Quell game, it went through the roof in terms of popularity, because of course it was free. And that, coupled with the fact that we were getting a lot of very positive reviews, it just kind of went to the top of the charts. People enjoyed that experience, and then they jumped onto the second one, Quell Reflect, which was still paid. And so then that started to bring in revenue to the company, and suddenly things got interesting. We're like, oh, okay, this was a nice little bit of pocket money, bit of subsidiary income.
Yeah.
And then after a while, Joe and I started saying, you know what, we could probably make a business out of this. So we handed in our notices at our respective companies and bid them farewell, and found an office here in Nottingham, and just sat down and started, okay, how would we do this? We got the software, hardware, everything we needed, and then we started work on a third Quell game, so the third in the series. And this time, because we were full time and we had a couple of quid, we could really put some time and some effort and some love into it. And so it's similar kind of aesthetic, the same relaxing kind of gentle feel, almost like if you think about some of those early iPhone games, like those Zen Unbound games, they all had very relaxing kind of. We were going for that kind of Braid and Limbo, just games that had an aesthetic charm. And so we started work on the third game, and this time we could get we got a voice actor in. And started to add in like this narrative aspect to the game, where you're kind of you were doing these puzzle things. I don't know if you've seen these games at all, but if you were moving the droplets around and completing these puzzles, and in doing so you were helping an old man to kind of like defragment his memories of his childhood and things. So it had this kind of like slightly wistful, nostalgic feel to it that people seem to resonate with. The people that were into a story really enjoyed this, and so that had some success. And then we did a couple more also 2D puzzle games, but not of that franchise, not of that series. And then we did a word game, and so overall the last 5 or 6 years we've released 6 or 7 2D iPhone games, and then obviously they're on Android, and then we put them on some other platforms like PS Vita and the Nvidia Shield. And so we have multiple revenue streams. But then what we've noticed in the last 3 or 4 years, as a lot of mobile developers did notice, is that the sales were drying up. Everything is going towards free to play, et cetera, et cetera. So we tried to get ahead of that and see where the market was going. And so we pivoted in around about 2015 back into console development, and just said, okay, let's park the mobile stuff for now. I'd love to come back to it one day, but let's go back to our roots in console development and let's throw ourselves into something. And we'd been kicking around this idea of an on-the-run game. What would it be like? We often, Joe and I, we've known each other for years, so we'd have these conversations. What about this? And if we did this, and sometimes they come into something. Sometimes we do a little prototype. Sometimes it's just lunchtime conversation. But we kept coming back to this idea of what would it be like to be on the run? If you were a fugitive, hiding in fields, staying away from cops. I think one of us had just seen that Kevin Costner movie, A Perfect World. If you ever saw that, he kind of escapes from prison, kidnaps a boy as a hostage, but then befriends the boy on the road, becomes almost like a father figure for him. And it's a lovely kind of like father son buddy movie. But along the way, he's constantly afraid of recapture, and so he sees residents and he has interactions with civilians in this small American town. And it's the constant fear of do they recognize him? Do they know what he's up to? And we said it'd be great to kind of capture that feel in a game, and we just couldn't really think of many games that had that feel. You had games where you're escaping from prison, or your rampage stuff, but just that feeling of being on the run. So anyway, long story short, we set about putting together a little prototype in Unity, and we decided, just for speed, that we would kind of have a top-down camera, and you're running around, just trying to avoid cops and things. And we thought, yeah, maybe there's something here. We submitted the game to Microsoft's Creative England fund, and they liked the concept and said, yeah, there might be something here. So they put some money into the concept. And we just kind of set about trying to build something. So we hired in an artist, a junior artist, to give us a bit more flexibility. My background is more on the 2D side.
Yeah.
So, I'm a competent 3D modeler, but, we wanted to be able to build environments quite quickly. So we got a talented young graduate in and started building this game. And then we got another programmer in, a senior guy who we've worked with for many years and trusted and have done some work with. Really good guy called James Trubridge. And he brings his own experience. He's been in the industry for years. So we had a good mixture of experience and raw talent, and started building this game, prototyping. And after about 6 months, Barry, we had a concept. We had enough of a game where you could kind of run around this rural environment, eat potatoes in a field. Cop cars would drive past, and you could hide. And at that stage it wasn't cars. It was on foot. It was policemen patrolling, and they would kind of come after you, etc. And we kind of said, you know what, this is what we talked about, but it's actually not that fun. It's a little bit boring. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it, you were kind of living in the wild, eating carrots and stuff, but it wasn't really gripping us. And so I think one day Joe did some work over the weekend and put in some cars, some prototype cars. And it started to take on a different direction. We thought, yeah, cars is interesting. But suddenly we realized, of course, putting in cars would drastically change, how you play the game. Rather than just walking around in a field, suddenly you're driving. So it becomes a lot quicker to traverse. It becomes a very different thing. But although it was not the thing we started out to build, it was, taking a new direction and becoming a bit more interesting. And then we realized, well, cars is a little bit more arcadey and a little bit more slapstick, but we like it. It became more accessible. And then we started to embrace putting in little toys like cranes and tow trucks and stuff. And then it started to kind of build momentum. And we realized that it was quite evocative of some of the early GTA games. And we're like, yeah, it does feel like that. And we when we loved those games, we're all huge fans of those, as a lot of people are. So we just kind of started to build momentum and build confidence in what we were building, and it kind of mushroomed from there. And then we got some more funding, secured a publisher in Curve Digital, and they helped us refine the vision and the direction. We hired in some contractors to help with the technical side of things, and of course, by that stage, we had 5, 6, 7 people working on the project. So the momentum, the speed with which you can iterate on things is getting quicker and quicker, and it really started to come together around about 2017, 2018. We started to build momentum, and fast forward. So the game's been in development for about 3 years now, and now we're on the eve of launch next week, as you mentioned. And we couldn't be happier to where we've got to. It's been a long, circuitous road to get to this point, and we didn't exactly set out to build this game when we started. But I think a lot of games go through that kind of process, and we're very happy with where it is so far, and we're just super excited. We just can't wait to get it out there and see what people think. We're very proud of it. We're very excited. And we hope that we'll be in a position to keep updating it and keep adding in new features and new content for as long as people are interested. So we're thrilled. I couldn't be excited. So how's that for a biography of the game? 3 years condensed into 10 minutes.
So is that it over? I'm joking.
Pretty much for now. For now, until the first patch or the first DLC.
Yeah. I know. It blows me, like, this game, that it's actually on the Switch, and it's Xbox and for PS4, like, because like I said, I've played the game, and honestly, I'm just blown away by how good it is. And where did you like? Who actually came up with the idea first? Was it you or your, I guess your partner? Like,
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is very collaborative, and to be honest, I don't actually recall who came up with the original
yeah,
idea. But like I say, it's been through many iterations and it's evolved over time. So I don't, so it's not like we came up with this idea as it is in your hands right now.
yeah, yeah,
I couldn't, you couldn't even say, but it's usually a little bit mutual. One of us will say, "What about this? Well, that could work, but then we could try this. What about that?" And
yeah.
it's just quite organic. And we've usually got 5 or 10 ideas that we're kicking around at any one time. But of course, development cycles being what they are, it takes so long to bring anything to fruition. We've always got notepads full of ideas. But I think we, being of a certain age, we're both fans of games from the 90s, those kind of top down games, the GTAs, obviously Micro Machines, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think, we've always been quite interested in kind of reprising some of those 90s, 80s and 90s concepts, but with a modern guise, the modern level of graphics and visual fidelity that people expect, as well as certain gameplay hooks. People's tastes have evolved and changed and matured over the years. People expect so much more from games now, rightly so. But I appreciate your comments about the quality. It's taken a long time, and I think it's testament to the hard work and experience and energy and commitment of the team that we have. It's a good mixture of people. And we don't always agree on a lot of things, but we try and hash it out and talk about things. But sometimes you just have to start building stuff. There's only so much you can talk about. You just have to build something and see if it works.
See if it works. Yeah.
Yeah, you scrap it or you start again. We're trying to find the balance between being effective and efficient and iterating on stuff. Obviously with any full-time company, you have a burn rate. And so you don't want to be wasting too much time just constantly iterating. But at the same time, small companies, we don't have the time for lengthy pre-production phases. So we can't spend 6 months prototyping ideas before we start building a game, And in the case of this game, we wanted to put together a prototype to try and get some funding into the company early on. So, we were straight into kind of building stuff immediately. So there has been some things we've had to fix and change and rethink as we went through it. But I think that's always the case with games companies. You're constantly trying to manage cash flow as best you can, but still produce things that people want to see, but you enjoy building. We don't want to make something that isn't of interest to us. We want to make games that we would want to play.
Play yourself, exactly. Yeah.
So far, we've managed to do that. I think the 7 or 8 games that we've produced, we're proud of in their own little way.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Talk to me about your time with Eurocom, and like I have to, like as you know, GoldenEye. I'm a massive fan of GoldenEye, the remake kind of. Talk to us about that there, and I guess the experience of creating something that was so iconic years ago.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of pedigree of the GoldenEye game in this part of the country, in the Midlands here, because as you know, the GoldenEye guys, Dave Doak and Carl Hilton and Graham and others, were the founders of Free Radical. So the DNA of that game, and I was a fan of it, but it was way before my time in terms of my development career. So that the DNA of that game was embedded within Free Radical, and people talk about it a lot. And the engine we used for Haze was partly kind of inspired by that early engine. Excuse me. And so when I went on to Eurocom, although there was no direct connection with the individuals concerned, it's still there's a lot of people that knew people that had worked on those games, etc. The development process, it was quite complicated, as I recall, because there was a lot of various levels of approval that need to go through with any James Bond project. Excuse me. Um, there's the as I recall, there was the publisher, and there was various like estates. You have to go through the Barbara Broccoli estate, and then the film studio. So every decision, and I mean, I wasn't really involved in any decision making capacity. I was just a 2D UI artist on that project.
Mm.
But from what I understand, the people that were trying to make the design decisions, they have to go through so many levels of command to get anything done. And we'd hear some of these stories about decisions, things we wanted to do, and the lengthy approval cycle really took a long time. So, for example, I think somebody was talking about wouldn't it be fun to have all the different bonds in one of the levels, where you could see, George Lazenby against Roger Moore against Sean Connery. But as I understand, the Bond estate said no, absolutely not. When you have a James Bond, character, in this case, Daniel Craig, he is the Bond across all levels. So you don't have other incarnations of James Bond against each other. It's always Daniel Craig. So if they wanted to have, I think at some stage they talked about having one of the space levels, is it Moonraker?
Mm-hmm.
So they said if you wanted to do that, you would have Daniel Craig wearing the clothes. Was it Roger Moore?
Roger Moore had, yeah.
Yeah. So you would have Daniel Craig wearing Roger Moore's clothes and having the ships and the space shuttle or whatever from the 80s. So they'd have to have these weird, kind of mashups, but that was just, what the studio and dictated at the time. So you'd hear these things and think, oh wow, that's strange. Wouldn't it make more sense to have Roger Moore or whatever? But so so I wasn't privy to those conversations, but we'd hear about them and you realize, wow, okay, this is it's complicated stuff, having to go through these various levels of approval. But in terms of the project, I mean, it was a long time ago, but I remember it being quite an enjoyable project to work on. There's a lot of talented people involved in that, and it was fun to work on a Wii game. And I think that's one of the games that of my development career that I'm more happy with. I think it was reasonably well reviewed, and
Yeah.
to have that under my belt. I'm glad you enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah, like I do have the gold controller.
Oh wow! Look at that. That's fantastic.
I'll open up fully. But yeah, did Eurocom do 007 Legends, if I'm correct? I can't remember. I have it here. Hold on. Give me a sec. Yeah, Eurocom done 007 Legends here. I have it on Wii U here as well.
Okay, so maybe I'm not sure. When did that come out, Barry?
When did that come out? Did it say here? 2012, I think it was.
Okay, yeah, so that would have been after my time.
Okay.
So I left the company in 2011, I think. So that would have been after my time. But yeah, probably quite a few of the same guys would have been involved in that. That's sweet. Look at that.
Oh, it's gorgeous. And GoldenEye on the Wii is my favorite online game, hands down.
Great.
And no, you weren't involved in the PS3 60 version, no?
In the no, my version was just on the Wii.
No, I guess no one knew at the time because it was no one knew that it was a timed exclusive kind of thing.
Yeah.
The public, because it was, I guess originally a Nintendo game.
Yeah.
So, and it was cool that the fact that they brought out a HD remaster of it,
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's great that the game is still running online to this day.
Yeah. Oh, is it really?
The servers are still going, yeah. I was playing, what was it, last week before?
Yeah.
A match or two. It was great crack.
Yeah. And tell me, Barry, what did you think of the UI? Did you enjoy the UI?
I did. And I appreciate I know this may sound ridiculous, but I appreciate the fact that for multiplayer you have you have local first and then you have online second.
Right. Okay, yeah.
If that's correct, because people maybe tend to go for online and then local.
Right.
If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, you're going back a while now, but I'm glad it worked out anyway. Yeah, we had So there was very strict visual guidelines for the interface of that game. So
Right.
Eurocom used to specialize in a lot of tie-in games. They didn't really do their own original IPs like Free Radical did, but all of their games were either film tie-ins or sporting franchises, that kind of stuff. So we got to work on a lot of games that had big names. So things like Ice Age and Harry Potter. We also did a Winter Olympics, Vancouver Winter Olympics game as well. So they all, were games that sound really good on your CV because they're all household names. But the downside of that is that there was always very strict release dates that they couldn't slip because they were usually tying in with a movie that was coming out. It was an Ice Age movie, so that'd have to be the Ice Age came out at the same time. Just you cannot slip, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the other side of it would be that there's very strict guidelines on a lot of stuff, things you can and can't do that would filter down from the studio or from the publisher or whoever. And so with regard to the Bond stuff, aside from the aforementioned actors and things, there would be a lot of visual guides. So as I recall, they used to be like this very distinctive kind of swirly, curly kind of blue bar that would go around a lot of the interface, and that was all cribbed from the interface stuff that was in the first of the new Bond movies. Was it Casino Royale? Was the new one? So they had, Bond had a lot of interfaces, didn't he? There was a lot of like iPads and computers that Q and M were using back in HQ, and they all had a very distinctive kind of like their own operating system brand. And you'd only see it on the screen for a couple of seconds, but as with a lot of movie stuff, they figure out exactly how these operating systems would work to make them as plausible and as believable as possible.
Yeah.
And so when I started work on the interface, I was given these brand Bibles, these style guides by whoever the studio was. And they would tell you exactly what the interface should look like, what typography you use, how big the lines should be, how things should move, how they interact with each other. And so although, there's a certain degree of freedom in trying to put together screens and work out what the information architecture is and what the user experience is, in terms of the visuals, we were kind of told, these are the colors, these are how things move around. So, and in some ways that's really helpful because it means you're not trying to invent a look and a feel. It's already been decided for you, so you're sticking to that. So it can actually be really helpful, and you straight away whether you're achieving that because you've got reference material to compare it to. So you've got 5 or 10 seconds of user interface that it comes from the studio, and then you're trying to match that up. Okay, does this look like our game? And tie it all together. So it was a fun experience, and I'm glad the game was well received. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Who would be your favorite James Bond?
I'm not a huge Bond fan, to be honest. I think, although, like a lot of people, I think the modern incarnation, especially the first two films, they were so like, wow, this feels like something real and something really visceral. Visceral was the word that got used a lot on that project because it was like a reinvention of Bond, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It was clearly influenced by the Bourne Identity. The fight scenes where everything had really quick camera cut, and so the word we used to hear a lot was that everything has to be visceral. They wanted everything to feel real and tangible and like it really counted. So I enjoyed those films. And in terms of the old stuff, I quite liked the George Lazenby incarnation.
Okay.
Just because it was different, and he died, didn't he?
Yeah.
I just thought, wow, that's just because that's so novel, and also I think sometimes some of the Bonds felt a little bit glib and a bit kind of tongue in cheek, and I think as a kid I always thought, why aren't they taking it seriously? Why are they making these silly jokes at this inopportune time? So I was quite.
And he was married as well, wasn't he?
He got So what happened? He got married, and then she died.
She died. Something. Yeah. Was it at the start? I can't remember exactly. It was. I'm watching a while, like, and then he ends up dying as well. Like.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's just like it almost stands out as what a weird one-off film in a sequence. But I think they're all quite cool, and if they're on, I'll leave it on. Oh yeah, well, I
Yeah,
forgot they were so sexist. He's
yeah.
such a sexist pig, isn't he? He just wouldn't fly nowadays.
So yeah, talk to me. Okay, are you excited for the new Star Wars movie, Episode 9
Yes, ish.
ish?
I think so a lot of us that worked on the Battlefront Star Wars project at Free Rad, we kind of feel a little bit like cheated by the whole Star Wars thing, just because it ended badly and the project got cancelled and it ultimately ended up in the in Free Rad going to the wall. And so a lot of us, it's kind of like it's hard to retain that childish naivety and passion for a franchise when you've kind of seen the ugly business side of it. And although I don't know the inner dealings of exactly what went on there, we just know that a really good company ended up going to the wall, and
Yeah.
a lot of good people were out of work, and a really good game, potentially a good game, never got released. So I think a lot of us, are a little bit burned by Star Wars from that point of view. Um, and I enjoyed The Force Awakens, and I enjoyed Rogue One. I think it feels like it's gone a little bit just kind of toxic now. And I know that it divides people a lot in terms of The Last Jedi. I don't have any strong feelings either way, but I think there was a lot of good stuff in that movie. But there was also some
Mm.
strange decisions, and it almost felt like the director, Ryan Johnson,
Ryan
wasn't it?
Johnson. Yeah.
It felt like he was trying too hard for my liking to subvert expectations. It's almost like there's the franchise is so aware of what people expect and want and demand that they're trying to flip things on the head to keep it fresh and keep it exciting, which is fine, and they're perfectly entitled to do that. But it didn't feel cohesive for me in terms of J.J. Abrams' plot, that those seeds that he planted in the first movie,
Yeah.
and then in the second one, it's almost like Johnson just said, you know what, all those interesting things, we're not doing anything with those. Whether it's Snoke and
Yeah. Sure. Like he killed off Snoke.
yeah, so which is fine, and
Yeah.
maybe it's all part of the grand master plan, and then there's going to be some really interesting resolution in the third act. But I think it just kind of seemed to like be a bit of a gut punch to a lot of the fan base, and like we don't know what to root for, or um, there's not a huge sense of anticipation because it feels like a lot of the threads have been closed off. So I'll certainly be there on day one. I'll be there for the 1 minute past midnight show for the
Yeah.
for the third film. But if I said to you that I'm excited about this as I was for The Force Awakens, I wouldn't be telling you the truth. Um, so yeah, we'll just see. But at the same time, I'm a lot older than the target demographic, and I think it's about time that old fogies like me probably acknowledge that Star Wars isn't meant for us anymore. No, it was, it's meant for people who are the age that I was when Jedi came out. It's for 10, 12, 14-year-olds to get it. And that's fair enough. The baton is handed down now. It's passing on. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm interested, and I'll keep an eye out for it, but I would be lying if I said, I'm super hyped and I can't wait to see.
I personally can't wait because I'm
Oh,
obsessed with
really?
Star
Sorry.
Wars. Yeah, you're grand.
You're
Um,
still a huge fan, yeah?
oh, like Darth. Actually, it's funny because Phantom Menace is now 20 years old,
Wow.
and like that's my first. I get well, obviously, cinematic experience.
Yeah.
Cinema experience. I've seen Star Wars, was Phantom Menace, and I think it's amazing still to this day. Darth Maul is so bloody cool. I think he's the best villain. Well, they've had
Yeah.
by far the coolest looking one.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, you're right. I completely agree. He was a really compelling character. When we worked on the Battlefront project, we had access to a lot of the assets, uh, as you would expect, art assets and music and things. And so there was a huge repository of stuff that we could dig into if we needed to see what an AT-AT's underbelly looked like. There was reference footage from the movies and from models and some like never, publicly seen stuff. So it was, a lot of us were huge Star Wars fans. And so it was a dream come true to work on that project, at least until it, collapsed. And when the project started, and the company hired in a lot of people, and the company grew very, very rapidly, and then the company kindly bought everybody those really good lightsabers. So we all went out into the car park and had a mass lightsaber duel in the dark. It was fantastic. So we had a lot of so we had access to all this stuff and access to all the music. And so Graham and the other music guys were putting together the soundtrack and creating their own things that felt like they were part of the Star Wars universe. And of course, the one of the pieces they were very keen to use was the Duel of the Fates.
Yeah, incredible.
Incredible piece of music.
Yeah.
And probably the most standout. For me, the iconic theme of the prequels. The one song that you can sing.
Yeah.
But we couldn't use that piece of music, apparently. And assuming my memory is correct and I'm getting the facts right, there was a legal or an administration mix-up with that piece of music that meant it was the one piece of music from all of the Star Wars films that we didn't have access to and couldn't be used, and nobody else could use it ever again. I think it was something to do with the choir that sang the la la, la la, or that sang that bit. There was some contractual thing where they hadn't checked a box, or whoever was signing off on the contract hadn't checked a particular box that meant any times that music was used, the choir had to be paid, something like that. As opposed to it being a one-off fee, it was a recurring fee. So LucasArts just said to us, "I'm afraid we can't use that for administration." We're like, "Oh, what? You can't use?"
What do you like? I don't know why they couldn't even use like an instrumental without the choir.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm not getting the facts quite right. Maybe it was the music rather than the choir, but that there was some legal contractual reason why that was to do with finances. If we used that every time, it would have to be paid for again. I'm like, oh no, not that piece.
I know it. Like it's amazing, that piece of music.
Yeah, but it was great. We had a lot of the executives from LucasArts would come over, and they would talk us through various design decisions and see, play the build and see where we were. And so it was just fascinating to, work with those people in the studio, and some of the senior staff members, not myself, but some of the senior staff members, including Joe, used to go over to Marin County, isn't it? And up to the LucasArts ranch and, hang around with George and all his cohorts and staff.
Oh, how deadly.
Joe used to come back with little presents for me, mugs and cups and stuff like that. So I was super jealous that he got to do that. But yeah, so from what I understand, George had reached the point where he said that he didn't want to invest any more money in games, and that I think the quote I heard was that he was sick of spending his grandchildren's inheritance on video games that didn't make their money back. So I don't know how true that is. And I'm sure there's a lot more to the story, but basically, things kind of went south, and it was never to be, sadly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
shame.
LucasArts, they done Zombies Ate My Neighbors, or it's known as Zombies. It was released on the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo years ago.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know the game, I'm afraid.
Oh, you should look it up. It's so good, and it's one of those games I want a remaster of so bad.
Oh yeah.
They
did some great games. Some of the early LucasArts games were fantastic.
Yeah.
All the Monkey Island and obviously the X-Wing TIE Fighter stuff. Wonderful memories of those games.
Yeah.
But then something went south for LucasArts. They just couldn't buy a win. They just couldn't seem to get it right. But I think they're turning it around now with Disney's involvement, and with DICE. But they had a great pedigree back in the day. I agree.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I'm not going to talk about the whole microtransaction stuff, but we'll fly past that. But anyway,
as companies or as developers, it's not something we have an expertise in.
Yeah.
I've never worked on a game that's had I think we experimented with it in Quell dipping our toe in the water, but we
Mm.
didn't really enjoy it. It felt unclean to us, but we were trying to respond to the way the market was going. But as a company and as individuals, we're not fans of it. We
Yeah.
respect developers that do it. It's their choice, and if that's what people want to pay for, that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. But we are much more interested in a value proposition where we make a game that has a premium price. This is what you pay for, and we can guarantee you 1 or 5 or 10 or 20 hours of entertainment.
Yeah.
It's a simple experience. We're not fans of this kind of
Pay for the
you know,
next level, or keep going
yeah,
on.
or,
Yeah.
trying to psychologically get people hooked on a particular mechanic and then pay them for it. And it's just we don't want to get involved in
Yeah.
that. So
See, that's the thing that, like, as you know, EA have a history of doing that, though.
yeah, they do. I mean, it works for them.
Yeah, but look here, look, I don't see a difference with, like, you don't have to buy it anyway, regardless.
Mm,
Like, check out Fortnite,
true.
and like people are spending, literally hundreds,
Yeah,
thousands
yeah.
on like a stupid skin or something. It's true.
Is yeah. In the industry, they're referred to as whales. Those customers that will spend an exorbitant amount of money on a particular consumable. Often they'll be able to bankroll an entire mechanic. I've read industry information about uh, games, mobile games, where the development team will recognize that they have one or two whale consumers in a particular country, and they will spend an outrageous amount of money on a particular skin or a particular consumable. And so the development team will actually focus resources on creating an asset or assets that they know that one individual will buy based on the telemetry
Mm.
information that they have about that demographic. So I think the example I heard was that there was some game, I think it was like I forget what type of game it was, but some mobile game, and they were looking at the user customer data that they had, and the developers recognized that there was some one guy in I think it was somewhere like Dubai, so quite possibly a rich emirate or some kind of oil sheikh or something like that, and he was spending tens of thousands of pounds on skins that had a particular football team. I can't remember what the team was. Maybe it was United Arab Emirates or something. And they realized, okay, this is a guy in Dubai who likes this football club, and he spends this. And so they started adding more skins in of that particular thing, knowing that he would buy them, and they would put crazy prices on them. And as soon as they put them up, he would buy them. And so they were focusing an entire team on building these assets for one person to buy because they knew he would buy them. And I mean, obviously that's a crazy kind of outrageous example and not representative of but the fact that you have developers needing to think like that, it's such a different world,
Yeah.
just compared to making a video game that hundreds of thousands of people can enjoy, that you're now focusing. It's a crazy world. But I guess that's from my point of view, this it seems to be where we're going. And I think the fact that so many people these days want things for free, it's changing the way entertainment is consumed. And I mean, it's clear that because people don't want to pay for YouTube, we now have 30-second pre-roll ads, and it's just we didn't have those 5 years ago, but now we do.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
are used to paying with their eyeballs now. And I think we're seeing that happen across other industries. Everything is we think things are free, but we're just paying in other ways with our with our information, or with our time.
Yeah.
Or we're having you remember all that Farmville stuff we had to
Oh,
share with your friends. And that's and we're doing that more and more. And the fear is for a lot of devs, as it happened on mobile, that everything became free, and that shifts the type of games that are made, and arguably it shifts the quality level. That we're probably going to see that on console or PC as well at some level, and so it is a concern. And it would be a shame if we lost that diversity that we have, especially in the indie scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much quality at the minute. so much talent and just a wealth of amazing games. I've been doing some of the press circuit in the last few months for American Fugitive, doing events like Rezzed, and just surrounded by hundreds of booths of just amazing quality games. And it would be such a shame if we were to lose that over the next few years, because everything's becoming free to play, because everybody's trying to jump on the Fortnite bandwagon. That would be a shame, and I hope people can recognize that their contribution, mainly their financial contribution and their support, is important. And if they just keep, if people demand free stuff, then it's going to be a race to the bottom, and we're going to lose that diversity, and things are going to become very one-dimensional. I think that would be a shame for the industry, and not just for games, but for entertainment as a whole.
Were you guys at Rezzed as well this year?
Yes, we were. Yeah.
I don't think I saw you. I was there as well.
Oh yeah.
I was. I see. It's funny because I wasn't going originally, and I said, what was it? Was it the week before? I just said fuck it, because I was actually planning to go to Liverpool.
Yeah.
To meet my friend there to go see the Zootons, who were singing that night.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the Zootons.
Yeah.
And I was, fecka, I'll fly to London instead that morning.
Yeah.
Go to EGX Rezzed, and then we'll get a train to Liverpool, and then go to the gig that night.
Yeah.
But I can't remember you there at all. Like, were you
we
in?
We were in the ID and Xbox room, which was the first room on the right as you came in the main front door. It was a big green room with all the ID and Xbox stuff.
Wait, hold on. Was it very kind of small, that room?
It was fairly hefty. There was about maybe 20 bays in there. It was a decent sized room.
Trying to think what. Hold on a second. No, because I actually recorded a couple of videos from one of the Xboxes.
So they had Void Bastards was in there as well. For the King was in there. This was This was EGX Res, right, at the tobacco factory.
Yeah.
First room on the right was the ID Xbox room. We had orange jumpsuits on. There's two of us there.
That sounds familiar now. Oh.
We had orange full prisoner orange jumpsuits, like Will Riley here.
That's mad. I could have, thought he came up and talked to you, like.
Quite possible, yeah. We talked to a lot of people that day.
At the event, yeah. Also,
yeah. But, I mean, it's probably the same for you. You would have seen hundreds of games. It's very hard to keep track of all this.
Oh no, but that place was packed.
Mental, yeah.
And I remember, let's see, what else have we got? No, because I actually met Image and Form. But SteamWorld Heist? SteamWorld.
Oh, yeah.
No, because I've been friends with them, and done games for a few years, but I actually got to meet Julius, from there. But the event was amazing. Even though I was only there for a few hours because I had to go away, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Really, and the quality of games was amazing.
Yeah. So our publisher Curve have recommended to us that we do those events where possible, but they said it's hard to know what the ROI on those things is.
Yeah.
Because you don't get much data about it, so in that instance, ID at Xbox gave us a booth. And they didn't charge us, so we were happy to jump on that.
Oh, that's good, actually.
Yeah, but I think otherwise you could spend a lot of time and a lot of money going around those shows and paying a lot of money for those booths, and it's hard to know exactly whether it equates into sales when your games are released. But so we look on it as a bit of testing and dipping our toe in the water, because that was really the first time that we had anybody play the game who wasn't in the industry and or wasn't close friends or colleagues of ours. This was the first time we put a controller in the hands of Joe Public and just said, play this game. And as you can imagine, people will be honest with you when they're not friends, they're not family, they don't care about your game, so they will play it, and you'll see very quickly whether it's resonating or not. And so it was a toe in the waters. Is this game viable? Is this something people were going to play? And I can say with sincerity that I came away after the 2 or 3 days that we were there just so invigorated and relieved and enthused by the positivity that we saw.
Yeah.
People playing the game. I think, probably of the people that played it, I would say 90% of people got it and clicked with it. You always get some people like, not for me, and they move on, and that's perfectly fine. But the people that were open to that sort of sandbox experience, 90% of them were like, yes, I get it. And just to see them having fun and doing crazy stuff quickly, messing around with, cranes and tow trucks and getting into fire explosions, and just to hear the peals of laughter, people huddled around our little booth there. It was just such a relief, Barry. It's great fun.
Just wait till you see my footage. I say you'll laugh your head off, especially at that bloody time trial.
Oh yeah, which one?
The first one that you do, it's at your brother-in-law's garage, like.
Right, yeah. So that would the one that goes around the farm, around the barn.
Yeah, and by the train track.
Yeah. That's hard.
I was like, for fuck, and I actually got blown up at the second one.
Yeah, as you hit the
second lap. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's with regards to those races and the cars as a whole, we hired in a contractor for a few months. A guy called Alex Trowers, who is a bit of an industry veteran. He's worked for lots of companies, and he kind of comes in and does a few months firefighting on particular problems. So he's a really good designer, and he's got a breadth of skills and experience. And we brought him in to just help refine some of the bits of the game, and the gunplay and the car handling were two of those things, and the difference. We had okay handling beforehand, but we weren't car experts.
Yeah.
So we were guessing and experimenting, and he just came in and with like high concepts and spreadsheets and plans. He changed all of the values across all of the cars and gave every single one of them. We've got something like 25 different vehicles through the game. Every vehicle then had its own feel. Right down to the torque of the engine and when the gears change up through and the revs and the top speed and the braking. Every car feels unique and just feels fun. And he really nailed it. And we think, it's the reason that the cars work so well they do now is largely down to him. So thank you, Alex.
Awesome. So I guess unfortunately we have to go now because unfortunately I have to get ready for work. Yeah, so even though I don't want to go, but yeah. So tell us where we can find you on social media, and I guess tell us the game, what price it is as well. Is it £18 if I'm correct? $20, €20?
That's right. Yeah, it's $17.99 around about that mark. There's some slight variance on the different platforms, but it's around that mark. It'll be out next week across all the major platforms. So we're talking Switch, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. And you can find, so that's on Steam, on PC. And you can find us on Facebook. American Fugitive is our page name. Likewise on Twitter, American Fugitive. And we have set up a subreddit. Just search for American Fugitive basically across the web. You find us. And our company name is Fallen Tree Games. And we are very excited about seeing what people think of the game. And we are hoping and planning to be as responsive as we can to the community feedback. So if there's things people like, don't like, we want to see more of them, we're going to be as responsive and agile as we can to addressing those things. And, after 3 long years of development, we're just itching to see what people think, and super excited. It's been a long old road.
Nice one. Thanks for coming on, Lewis. And maybe one day we'll see like a movie come out of the game. Fingers crossed.
Well, we'll have to give Tom Hardy a shout and see if he's available.
Yeah. And Bryan Cranston,
that would be good. Yeah, if only somebody could do a Fugitive movie. Imagine that.
That'd be cool, though. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, so guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Please do check out the gameplay video. I have the first 45-50 minutes. Absolutely amazing. When it comes out on Xbox, I'll pick it up there and upload some 4K video there. Why not? You can, of course, check us out on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And I guess for more gaming and podcasts, keep right here at IGS. Alright guys, see you soon. Bye bye.